Hey everybody, it's me, Dayna Lynn Nuckolls, the People's Oracle. I'm here. Are you here? Did you make it? Are you with us? Hold on one second. I'm doing double duty today, so let me just fix the computer. All right. What's up, Instagram? How y'all doing? Let me not forget this time. Hold on. Hey y'all. Hi Reedy. Hold tight, y'all. Hold tight. 1 minute. Hold on, guys. Okay. Ooh, wait, pink. All right. Whew. It's raining. It's raining. Ugh. Are y'all ready? I want to shout out, before I even get started today, I want to shout out the three people who participated in one of my 3-person study group slash readings yesterday. The way that our whole entire conversation really brought us back to the topic of this week's new moon solar eclipse in Taurus. The people in that group yesterday, like, we had just like closing statements, questions, comments, and the way that they confirmed, affirmed, and really made clear what I needed to talk about today. So I appreciate y'all. I'm not gonna name drop, but I appreciate y'all, appreciate y'all, appreciate y'all. I hope you got your guide. Do you have your 2021 guide? Um, yeah. So I think it was last week I went live and I was talking about how, like, you know, I do a lot of like research and planning to get this content. I mean, I have to literally immerse myself and pour over the astrology of the subsequent year in order to write the content and in order to, make it good. And so there are times when I'm writing the content in these guides. This is the 2021 Sidereal Astrology Guide. There's times where I'm writing the content in this guide, and I'm like, damn, what's really about to happen? Like, what's about to happen? I remember when we were working on the 2020 guide, we were looking at March and February, and we were like, holy, like, what is really about to go down? And sure enough, a pandemic hit. So as I come back to the 2021 guide and the table of contents here that I've written, I'm looking over these themes and I'm like, damn, here comes June, confronting the wounds of rejection. And I was low key like salty with myself for writing that. But at the same time, it's like I just had to say what I saw. And so I said what I saw, and now I see what I saw is real. Are you seeing what I saw? Are you seeing what I saw, what I wrote in your life? Let me see here. I did kind of touch on this in my live the other day, but I just want to kind of come back to this. We are having a new moon solar eclipse in Taurus on, what is this? Thursday, June 10th. This is a part of the larger series of eclipses called Decolonizing the Survival Instinct. We recently had an eclipse in Scorpio. It was a full moon lunar eclipse, and it was talking to us about speaking up to save your life. So I want you to look back over the past 3 weeks, past couple of weeks today, and I really want you to think about, have there been any occasions where you've had opportunities to speak up for yourself? Have you had any occasions where you've had opportunities to say something that maybe in the past you were concealing the authenticity of your feelings, or you just weren't in a space to really even realize what you really felt? And how did that, Scorpio new moon turn on the lights, and make some things clear for you? That's what a full moon does. And when it's a lunar eclipse, this is a long story. And this long story is so deeply connected to the ways that humans are evolving and changing and what we're focusing on collectively. So as I mentioned before, collectively, we're focusing on the rights of trans children and youth. We are focusing on the rights of bodily autonomy of all people with uteruses. We are focusing on the right to thrive and survive of indigenous people, of black people, of anyone non-white. We are focusing on the ways in which we have seen ourselves through the lens of somebody else's power. And how when we strip away that lens, we feel our feelings and we feel our bodies. We're talking about how the revolution begins in your body with feeling. And when you actually feel your feelings, it can be very jarring and disoriented because white supremacism and capitalism and patriarchy requires us to numb our bodies so that we can be fruitful laborers for the wealth class. And so when you actually feel your feelings, you realize like, no, I'm not going back into work. I'll quit this job, right? No, I'm not working for $7 an hour. I'm not going to do it. There's dignity and the power that comes with speaking up to save your own life. So here we are, and I'm back at the fill in the blanks in the 2021 guide. Here we are at the new moon solar eclipse in Taurus, reimagining the status quo. I've named this Alien Nation. Okay, so let me just break this down, like why I named it this. Now, obviously, this past week, and there's been a lot of talk about the government, the United States government, releasing information and documents on UFO sightings and what we would perceive to be alien life. And I thought about how we don't need to go to another planet. We don't need to leave Earth to meet aliens. Because alien is a word specifically in America that we have used to classify a group of non-people. And we explicitly use that word to talk about anybody who does not have citizenship. But we implicitly treat people that way when we strip them of their legal right of protection by the law. We strip them of that right when we make laws that effectively erase their citizenship and the constitutional rights that are given to them. So each of us conceals our alien inside of us. In each of us, there are aspects of ourselves that we do not express, that we do not embody, that we do not feel, because to feel them would elicit shame. And the shame would come about because of rejection. So for June, we're talking about the wounds of rejection. What are wounds of rejection? Right? What evidence do you have in the way that you relate and connect or don't connect, love or have trouble loving? How can you see inside your relationships the wounds of rejection? To think that only certain groups of people are rejected, to think that only queer people, trans people, black people, right? This buys into the belief that there are people who are too different to accept. I talk about the wound of Scorpio being alienation, right? The wound of Scorpio being to be made an alien amongst your kin, to be made an outsider, to be told that you are too different to be accepted, to be told that your presence, your authentic feelings, your self-determined identity makes you too different to belong. And that in order for you to be here in community with us other humans, with us other non-aliens, either we're going to mutilate you or you have to mutilate yourself. In order for you to conceal the parts of yourself that make you too different, too obviously different to be accepted. You got to change it. You need to change your hair, your nose, your face, your lips, your skin color, the way that you talk, the spouse you marry or don't marry, the person you date or don't date, how out loud or how silenced your love is that you profess for people. All of these things are going into a deep human survival-based need for acceptance and validation. And culturally, acceptance and validation means you need to look and make me feel comfortable. And if you look in a way that makes me feel uncomfortable, if you feel feelings that causes me discomfort, I need to change you. And I need you to change yourself, right? We underestimate Venus. I feel like pop culture, and I'm talking about Venus because Venus is the planet that is in full focus at this particular new moon eclipse. And you can be looking at your own Venus to really understand what your Venus natal promise is. But I feel like our modern conceptions of astrology and the ways that we talk about it and the oversimplification of concepts that lose the nuance has led us to believe that Venus is purely this earth planet and it's just about money and pretty things and feeling good and sex and acquiring and luxury and sensuality, right? That Venus is water too. And we know, if you got the Reading Your Sidereal Birth Chart workshop, that water is the body and the bodily functions. So when we talk about rejection and acceptance, validation, shame, we're talking about the territory of Venus. Your own Venus in your birth chart is going to articulate to you how important is it in your hierarchy of needs, defined by who and what you've had to be to survive, right? How important and vital was it for you to change your appearance, for you to change what you show and what you express in order to be validated and accepted? What were the consequences of rejection? What did rejection look like for you? Sometimes rejection can look like invisibility, but other times, and I think the most insidious way that rejection looks is that it requires us to conceal and repress our feelings. And oftentimes we get so good at it that not only do we seek out relationships that repeat the rejection we're accustomed to, but we actually reject ourselves. What does self-rejection look like? Denial of feelings, minimization of feelings, mutilation of your body in order to appear more. Understand that this is about power and survival. And I know on the internet, they told you not to care about what people think and don't, be so invested in getting validation from other people. And it's just like, we need validation to survive. Understand that in order to get your needs met, your parents have to kind of like you, right? Like is underestimated. Yes, there are going to be people who override maybe they just really don't vibe with their child. But there's going to be people who don't like their children, but the obligation of parenting is much more important to them. But understand that very few people can overcome their dislike, even for their own child. Let's just sit on that for a minute, because we really assume that all parents not only love their children, but they actually like their children. And we underestimate that like is an important and vital factor in getting your needs met. If your parent doesn't like you, they may look at you with disgust. They may cause you to feel ashamed of yourself, who you are, your physical appearance. They may cut you down and judge you and chastise your appearance or the way that you talk or your interest, right? What are the wounds of rejection? It's an invisible wound. There's no scars. There's no blood. There's nothing physical to see when you're rejected. But the number one place that you can look for and find wounds of rejection is in your relationships with other people, in your relationship with your own body. So let me rewind here because I want to hit this point home that we don't talk about enough. We don't talk about the fact that some of your parents did not like you and they made sure that you did know, that you knew that they didn't like you, and you're still hurt. Your parents made it clear that your appearance was unacceptable to them, and that shit hurt. Your parents made it clear that who you are, maybe even your very existence, was a source of embarrassment and shame. You may not remember, but if you look back, you can see. Confronting the wounds of rejection. So, I got some horoscopes for y'all, but I just want to revisit this really quickly here. Reimagining the status quo. The status quo, we're talking about roles and expectations, classes of people, and how we divide classes of people. And what are the expectations for each class? What are the rights and privileges given to each class? It is so important that we give appropriate weight and value to being liked. And it's important that we not minimize our need to be liked. It's critical that we extend grace to ourselves for the things that we do in order to be liked. Doing something in order to be liked is not a character flaw or a shortcoming. Doing something to receive the positive opinion and that twinkle in the eye of another person, that's not a character flaw. I don't care what the internet tells you. I mean, the same time they're telling you that, oh, she just doing that because she want people to be like, oh, it's a pick me. Oh, you're a simp, right? We have so many degrading terms to describe people or describe behavior that people display in order to be liked. Do you want to be liked, or do you want to walk around with everybody giving you the ugly ice grill, making sure you know that they are absolutely disgusted with your presence? That's what you want? You want to walk around and have people avert their gaze because they can't stand to look at you. Raise your hand if your parents did that to you. Raise your hand if people in your family made it clear that your physical appearance disgusted them. They told you to lose weight. They told you to change your hair. They said, oh, you know, that's not really flattering on you. You're a little bit too fat for that. Oof, you're wearing that? You look like a floozy. That's how you out here? All right then. That's what you're wearing? I mean, okay. Right? Being liked is a survival strategy. Being liked gave you access to getting your needs and desires met in your house. And oftentimes you had to contort and mutilate your physical or emotional or behavior self in order to get the kind of attention that would make your parents actually meet your needs. And sometimes there was nothing you could absolutely do. There was no pretzel you can turn yourself into. There was no way that you could fix your face, your clothes, your feelings, your hair, your eyeballs in order to get them to like you. And so for some of us, hello, Scorpio, right? You just give up, right? I kind of think of the whole grunge and punk movement as a way that we lean into our differences and find community into our differences and kind of give up on the desire to be included in the normal power structure. It's a kind of opting out. And so queerness as a praxis is also a way that we find a home in our alienation. I'm going to say that again. Queerness is a way that we find home in our alienation. It is a way that we identify other people who do not conform. Queerness is not about sexuality. Queerness is not about who you sex or what genitalia you have inside or outside. Queerness is not about who you love. Those things may be a part of one person or another person's queerness, but queerness is a praxis that divests from contorting and mutilating the self in order to be seen as normal. We are all aliens. We are all queerness. It's just a matter of how well you hide it. And some of us cannot hide it. And so we cannot, those of us who cannot hide it, we cannot do anything to conceal our alienation. How are you making home in your alienation? The last thing that I want to say is that Taurus speaks to us about the cultural concept of passing. Passing means in the eyes of power, you have been othered for your race, perceived or assigned, your gender, perceived or assigned, your class, perceived or assigned, your sexual identity, perceived or assigned. You have been othered. But passing talks about having the capacity to conceal your otherness in a way that makes you accepted by power. And by proxy, it gives you access to power. For Leo, that's going to be through appearing as a cisgendered male or having connections or relationships with cisgendered appearing males that gives you access to capitalist power, white supremacist power, or male power. For Taurus, this is appearing cisgendered. This is appearing or giving off, giving white, depending on where you are. We're talking about Korea before they were colonized by a whole bunch of people, or after. It might be appearing Japanese, right? But in America, it's about appearing white or being ethnically ambiguous enough that people are glamorized by you, right? It's about appearing straight, heterosexual rather, probably is a better word, right? But appearing heterosexual, right? You can pass, and this gives you survival, right? Understand our ancestors who had skin that was light enough to be perceived as white, or hair that was straight enough to be perceived as white. They survived. It brought them safety. And so we have come to police each other, that when you do not fit into the box of heterosexuality and you do not fit into the box of cisgenderedness, if you do not fit into the box of maleness, you do not fit into the box of whiteness, right? That these are differences too visible to hide or conceal, but it doesn't stop us from policing each other into those boxes. We fat shame. We hate dark skin. We call it nappy hair. Even for those of us who have more than one racial identity, you're told to choose. You're not white enough for the whites and you're not black enough for the blacks. You're not gay enough for the gays and you're not straight enough for the straights. And so they police and they deride and there's violence and there's laws. This is not just superficial, your track is showing, right? But even that is a way that we police class, because the statement that we're making is that you're too poor to have your hair looking right. So you're giving away your poverty, right? Reimagining the status quo in our lives of relationships, reimagining the status quo of class dynamics, and that class is the intersection of your perceived race, and class is the intersection of your perceived class. And the whole point of alienation is that very few of us get to choose our race, and very few of us get to choose our class. Very few of us get to choose our gender or sexual identity, right? So we all have an alien nature inside of us, and Taurus is just what we put on top of it. So when we go through the scanning machine, it doesn't reveal any of our differences. And some of us do it in the way that we respond to our own feelings. How dare we have a feeling that deviates against the consensus of our family environment? You don't want to be the odd one out who points out that this person is abusive or a rapist. We don't want to be the one to point out that this person is violent or there's something wrong. You want to fit in. You want to conceal your differences. Nobody wants to be an alien. Let's do some horoscopes, and then I'm going to pull these cards. All right? Let's start with Taurus. Taurus, this goes, so remember, this is for sidereal only, okay? And this is for, when I say a sign, I'm talking about your rising sign. I'm talking about your moon. If you have the planet that rules that sign in the sign I'm talking about, that goes for you. If you have a stellium, a group of 2 or 3 or 4 planets in one sign, that goes for you as well. So just listen, because there may be something in all of the signs for you. If you do not have your sidereal birth chart, understand that nothing I say here is going to apply to your tropical birth chart. If you do not know what sidereal is, that means that you're likely most familiar with your tropical birth chart. If you want to follow along with these horoscopes I'm going to give, please go to thepeoplesoracle.com and click sidereal birth chart. It will take you to a blog post with instructions on how to use astro.com to cast your sidereal birth chart with the settings I use in order for you to use any of my content, but specifically these horoscopes today. Okay, so we're going to start with Taurus. The wound of Taurus is rejection. The coping mechanism of Taurus is docility. Docility means you're not going to ruffle any feathers. You're just going to do what you're told. I mean, docility is respectability politics. We just had Monique, the comedian, go on and do a video talking about Black girls wearing their hair bonnets outside of the house. And it reminds me of the pamphlets and booklets that Black migrants from the South who had come up north to Chicago and Cleveland, wherever, they were given these pamphlets and these booklets, giving them all of the instructions about which behaviors were appropriate. Don't sit out on your stoop. Don't hang your laundry on the line. Don't leave your house with your hair scarf on. Wear shoes here. All of these different ways of, these are the rules of how to appear respectable and to not give off your blackness too much, because we don't want to give off that we're really black, right? We want to perform whiteness. Survival, right? But the gift of Taurus is charm and likability, and we just don't talk about that enough, right? Anyone who has Venus in the first house is going to have a sense of identifying with Venus and how they embody the capacity to conceal, right? To show what they want to show, to perceive what's going to make the person in front of them feel comfortable and likable, right? Famous Taurus rising is Will Smith. He talked about how he became the funny guy in order to disarm his father of his violence, to distract his father's violent outburst from the other children in the house and his mother. So he became the funny kid. Whole identity, whole career, whole life, and approach to every relationship subsequent was centered around the fact that in order to survive, he better make somebody laugh. Right? Hold on, I want some nice smoothie. Nice smoothie. So, Taurus, reimagining the status quo of who you are. Right? Reimagining the status quo of roles and expectations you've embodied in order to be liked. How do you use that charm to your advantage? How do you charm and glamorize yourself out of your own feelings, when the feelings that you're charming yourself out of are the very feelings you need to feel to save your own life? Authenticity is possible for you, and that's what these eclipses are teaching you, okay? Let us go on to, let's do fixed signs, right? Let's go on to Leo, right? Taurus is your 10th house, so we're talking Leo rising, sun, stellium in Leo, moon in Leo, okay? Stellium, 2, 3, 4 planets in the same sign, right? This is talking about your relationship with authority and power. It makes sense that Leo would have Taurus on the 10th house, right? That in this space where, in all of our charts, the 10th house is where we seek and find power or influence. It's where we are promoted or where we encounter authority figures. And so we see for Taurus that power's expectation of you is that you conform. And that if you're Leo rising with Venus in the 10th or Sun and Taurus in the 10th, especially Sun and Taurus in the 10th, right? We know that you can pass. We know that Dad had access to power, whether through his race, his gender, sexual identity, or wealth, that gave you access to things, and that now you embody this. And now you're forced to deal with the consequences. You're forced to deal with it. How willing are you to contort yourself into pretzels in order to have access to power, right? To have access to influence and authority out in the world. What does authenticity look like for you, right? Particularly with your mother. How has that relationship shaped your experiences of acceptance versus rejection? Who required docility from you? Right? Last thing I want to say about Leo is that your parental access, mom and dad, your home and past and where you're come from, things are coming up and out. Watch your plumbing too, Leo rising. Watch your plumbing, foundation of your home, all of those things over the next month or so. You might need to make some repairs. So, but yes, your parental access and really confronting the past and the legacy of your family and where you come from and what you've inherited in terms of roles and expectations around class and where you're headed and what you're doing in your life, okay? Let us go on to Scorpio. Ooh, Scorpio. Scorpio is really dealing with other people's inauthenticity and the way that other people's inauthenticity triggers them. Right? Okay? They're dealing with the fact that They, Scorpio, is too different to hide. There is very little to nothing Scorpio moon, Scorpio rising can do in order to conceal how different they are. One of the things, let me just do a little caveat here. One of the things that came up yesterday in the 3-person reading study group I did yesterday was that mental illness, right, is basically saying you cannot conform your way into normalcy, right? That those of us who suffer and struggle with mental, emotional ailments, we become the container for everything that no one else wants to confront and acknowledge. And so in the past, they would just lock you up in an institution and drug you until you were a vegetable. And in some ways, they're still doing that. But understand, even mental illness is a way that we turn people into aliens. We don't say, I see that you're struggling with this. How can we change things in order to make you more safe and welcome? Instead, we have rigid roles and expectations that if you do not fit, you're sick. And all you need to see is that we're on number 5, 6, or 7 of the diagnostic statistic manuals that tells your insurance company what's a legitimate illness. Remember, it used to be an illness for an enslaved person to seek freedom. Drapetomania. It used to be an illness for a woman to even have feelings, hysteria. They'd drug you up. So these mental illnesses are fundamentally making you an alien. That's what the culture does. It's saying that you're gay. Ooh, you must be sick. They'd lock you up for gayness as well, right? Right? Somebody's mentioning Naomi Osaka, who has Venus and Mars in Scorpio. And she's someone who's dealing with this very presently right now, right? That if you cannot conform your feelings to perform in the way we expect you to conform, says capitalism, then fundamentally you're sick. There's nothing wrong with the system. There's nothing wrong with the method, institution, and structure. You're the problem, and your refusal or inability to conform is your problem, and you're sick, and you need to fix it so you can come back and be a good worker bee. Right? Right? So Scorpio, how does other people's ease and willingness to conform and pass for normal, in quotations, trigger you? And what are you doing being triggered? How are you handling that? What wounds of rejection come up? Sometimes we can be so entrenched in our alien nature because we've had to be to survive that we see other people's capacity to pass as a threat. And it triggers us. It reminds us of how we cannot change, even if we wanted to, without inflicting real harm on ourselves. Let us go to Aquarius. Aquarius. Daddy. You got daddy issues, Aquarius? Right? This is the 4th house from Aquarius. This is about dad. This is about rejection, invisibility, erasure. It's about opting out of the need for validation altogether, not in quite the same way as Scorpio, right? Because Scorpio wears the appearance of difference in a way that elicits a visceral response and expectation that they physically change. But when we're talking about Aquarius, we're talking about the very fact that you even exist at all. We're talking about the very fact that you were born and that your birth made a statement about your dad. And now you bore the brunt of that shame. Now, depending on your chart, you may have a dad who handled that well, who stepped up to the task and said, hey, this happened, but I'm going to allow it to change me so that I can become the kind of person I want to be. For others, it was too big of a task. They had too much trauma around their own upbringing and their own relationship with their dad. And so they packed up the suitcase, sent it off to you with no label, and said, hey, next generation, you got to deal with this. Right? Right? Aquarius is the sign where the wound is invisibility. You don't even exist, so I'm not going to acknowledge you. And so there goes Aquarius taking the eraser all over themselves. I must not exist. Let me not take up too much space. I don't want to take up too much space. The gift of Aquarius is self-determination. You get to decide. You don't have to be relished to the fringes of an invisibility because the people in your life just could not see you, could not acknowledge you, would not validate you. You can take that same pencil, flip it around, use the lead, and be explicit about who you are and take up that space. Let's go on to Gemini. Gemini. In your work relationships, in the way that you deal with your own physical ailments, right? You're Gemini rising and you've got some tough planets there, like maybe the moon in Scorpio, Saturn in Scorpio, right? You may have some illnesses that make you disabled. Gemini rising, moon, stellium in Gemini, right? Or your very line of work alienates you. Your skills and your obligations alienate you, right? But it may also be that in your work, you find a home, a safe place to embody your queerness. Again, queerness is not just gay or bisexual or trans or non-binary. It's not just about gender. Limiting the definition of queer to just sex and gender erases the reality that there are norms required of us beyond our genitals. And those are just as political. There are laws and expectations that are just as important and heavy as the ones that are used to oppress people for their gender and sexuality, right? Gemini in particular. Oh wait, I'm doing this wrong. Hold on. I was reading Gemini for Scorpio. I need to be reading Gemini for Taurus. Lord help me. Rewind. Yeah. Okay, I'm back. Gemini, Taurus, 12th house. Ooh, baby. Okay. That other stuff I said sticks, and you're going to be dealing with that for the rest of the year. But let me rewind and actually read the right sign for Gemini, which is the 12th house of Taurus. Oh man. I think that there's a way that Taurus triggers Gemini because there is a way that Gemini changes and adapts based on new information and experiences, right? There's a kind of freedom that comes with that. But also, Gemini is one of the four mutable signs, the wounds of all of which are not being believed or not being able to trust. So Gemini has the coping mechanism of gullibility, right? They are taught not to trust their own judgment. Their own perceptions are undermined. And they're kind of lulled into the 12th house saying, well, if you would just conform, we would believe you. If you would just look how I want you to look, we would believe you. And we would believe you because you'd fit right nicely in the little box that we made for you based on your genitals, or based on your hair texture, or based on your class, right? We all must confront the 12th house at some time. We all must confront the part of ourselves that feels like betrayal to embody. And so for some, that means you might want to just stay in the gray and ambiguous area, right? It may be that you just want to avoid making an explicit statement about who you are or how you feel, just so you can stay in that nebulous gray area. Right? But understand that you too want to be liked, Gemini. You too want to have the positive opinions of others. You too have suffered from rejection. And that you too want for somebody to look at you and feel good when they see you. And you got to accept that about yourself. You do care, actually. And so all of that stuff about not having feelings and not caring and, Gemini, you got to watch out for the gullibility that comes when you even fool yourself. Fool yourself into thinking that you don't have any feelings. Fool yourself into thinking that it doesn't matter. Just laughing it off, kidding, right? There are some things you do take seriously and that you care about, and that's okay, right? Let's move on. Let us go to Virgo. Yes. Oh, Virgo, it's so natural for you to figure out, at least in terms of the steps that need to be taken in order to be validated in institutions. And depending on your chart, that might bring up some conflicts. It may be that you don't have a traditional path to realizing the success that you need. It may be that you do have a traditional path, and that's okay too. But understand that even for you, Virgo, you have a need to be perceived positively by power for the sake of your goals in life. You understand that there are roles and expectations required of you. If you are Virgo rising and you have not become a naturalized citizen of your country, these eclipses might be the time that you apply for your visa or your green card or other document, right, that strips you of your alien nature. Depending on your chart, it may be that, depending on your chart, it may be that you gotta leave and that you're an alien and so you gotta go. I'm gonna move on because I feel like that was for somebody, and yeah, man, that's heavy. You saw it, Jada, Renee Holy. You heard it. We just did Virgo. Now we must do Sagittarius. Oh, Sagittarius. Oh, yeah. Let me stop. Sagittarius is, man. I talked about the other day about when I think when I did the full moon eclipse in Scorpio reading, I talked about how Sagittarius can often find themselves upholding convictions in a way that undermines their own survival. And when they have to make difficult survival choices, it often means that they don't get to live up to the convictions that they believe and that they professed. And there's a lot of just struggles that come along with having to make choices that don't align with what they say they believe. So particularly for this Taurus new moon solar eclipse for Sagittarius moon rising, Jupiter in Sagittarius, stellium in Sagittarius, we are talking about the kind of compromises that you have to make in your work, right? Depending on where your Venus is, this is going to tell you a lot about what you even do for work, where you find employment and the things that you do. It's going to say a lot about your workplace relationships. And you can be confronting the dynamics of sexuality or gender or race and class in your actual work. You can be struggling with the expectations that you conform in your workplace. You can be subject to microaggressions. You can be told that maybe if you would have you would have gotten this promotion chosen for this project. I wonder if the woman who got denied tenure at the university is Sagittarius rising or has some placements in Sagittarius, right? But ultimately for Sagittarius, this is about the relationships surrounding your work, the projects you work on, whether, if it's with coworkers or subordinates or people that you collaborate with, the kinds of projects you work on. I can imagine a scenario of someone who might have Sagittarius rising and have Venus, say, in the 10th house, right? Or even Venus in Taurus. They might be dealing with, specifically Venus in Taurus, or Moon, they might be dealing with these dynamics of race and gender and class in their work in a way that really makes their capacity to maintain employment a struggle, right? So this is a long story for all of us that does connect back to 2020 and the Venus retrograde then. So definitely thinking about what began or what took root in May and June of 2020 and figure out where you are on that now for everyone. The last piece I want to say is that we're all dealing with this tension between conform, alien, change, stay different, say how I feel, keep it to myself, pretend like I don't have any feelings or actually feel my feelings. And there are consequences for both of those, and neither one of those is always right or always wrong. And there's nuance to this because I can't make a statement about someone else's conforming because they're doing what they have to do to survive, right? And I can't make a statement about someone embodying their alienation because they found home in their queerness or they realize that there is no amount of conforming they can do to fit in. And they've decided to stop harming themselves. So we should all take a note from the people who are speaking so loudly about their identities, risking further harm and rejection and pushing through the shame of being different and being told you're different and your differences is enough to make us not include you, right? Let us go on to Pisces. Pisces, this is in your family relationships with your siblings. You are likely confronting the wounds of alienation and rejection as it regards estrangement in your family, or, if you are the children of immigrants or a first generation immigrant, Pisces rising, you are dealing with the baggage you've been handed around what family is, what belonging is, where home is, and understand that generation to generation and generation subsequently, when you come from a family of people whose home is not where you live now, there is a way that we pass down respectability politics There is a way that we lose connection to our spiritualities. We lose connection to the ways that we related to the land. And we fundamentally lose connection with our own bodies. We forget that our bodies are the safe place and keeping of our ancestors. And yes, we must make difficult decisions to survive, but it is in our bodies that the promise, the stories, the culture, the food, the language, the spiritualities, it is in our bodies where our ancestors live. And so in your family, you might be seen as someone who is too much like where you came from. And they don't want to be reminded of where they came from. Maybe because the wounds of what was inflicted upon them when they got here bring up too much trauma and trigger to remember. But don't let that stop you from reconnecting to yourself. Don't let that stop you from discovering the truth of where you came from. I know I'm talking to a lot of people right now, but let me go on. Let us, where are we at? We got to do cardinal signs. Oh, we're at Cancer. Oh, Cancer, how are you doing? What's going on with your exploration of sex and pleasure and gender identity? What is love for you? Who do you love? Are you for sure? Who do you love, Cancer? Right? How are you confronting the wounds of rejection and alienation in your love life? In your peer group and the groups where you want to be accepted, what are you doing in order to be accepted? What's the lengths you're going to take, right? For Cancer rising, in order to have access to community in many ways, you've got to fit. You've got to look the part. You've got to be clocked as normal, right? I mean, already for Cancer rising, moon, stellium in Cancer, the influence of women and family and the importance of belonging inside that family unit is so important to your survival, right? Cancer is saying that the women in your life have a say, probably the final say, especially if you have Cancer moon, or you're Cancer and have moon in the 10th house, right? Moon in Aries. But you too are confronting ways that you conceal your differences. And it has an impact on your relationships. It has an impact on your capacity to be creative. It has an impact on your definition of love and fun, right? Your artistic practice, your creative practice, being in front of the camera or whatever it may be. That there is a way that you got to fit in the box if you want to get the validation. I feel like it's definitely easier for Cancer to navigate this in terms of the Taurus side. Scorpio side, I don't know about that. Mars is in your first house anyway, Cancer, so it's just a lot going on in your life, and I'm really sorry. You're going to be all right, though, hopefully. Let us go on to Libra. It's the other Venus-ruled sign. Libra is about the principle. It is about the composure. It is about, you're not going to know anything about how I feel unless I tell you. Nothing in my face is going to give away the truth of my feelings. You might say some crazy shit to me, but take it personally? No. You might do something messed up, but I'm only going to let you know if I want to let you know. And sometimes, Libra, we can be so good at acting that we convince ourselves as well that this is who we really are and how we really feel. We're really this detached and we're really this understanding. And if only everyone else could be so understanding, the world would be a better place. If everyone could just not make such a big deal out of things, everything would be fine, right, Libra? Sometimes you need the goddamn drama, Libra. I mean, what it really comes down to for all the air signs, Gemini, Libra, Aquarius, is that, like, do you want to be related to as the person you are or not? Like, do you actually want to be in a relationship? Do you actually want to be seen? Do you actually want to connect? Or are you fine with the people in your life feeling like you don't exist because you don't have any feelings and nothing is a problem for you and you don't take anything personally and everything is always fine and cool? Yeah, whatever, I'm just saying. Right? So Libra, confronting the truth of your own capacity to conceal, don't feel, right? I'm sure Elsa was a Libra. Your own capacity to conceal from others and also concealing from yourself. This takes you to a really uncomfortable place, right? It takes you back into your body. And being in your body takes you to a place where you don't have a lot of control. Because God forbid Libra lose control now, right? Acknowledging the Taurus aspect of yourself, that you too want to be liked, requires you to visit a place where you don't have the control that is so important for you to keep. Understanding that you cannot control everything, Libra. And I know growing up for you, you did a great job of controlling other people's reactions and responses to you because you just weren't a problem. You weren't going to let them get under your skin. You weren't going to let them see that you were angry. You wanted to keep the power by not showing them what was really going on. Time's up for that. Almost done here. Where are we? We are at Capricorn. Oh, Capricorn. Capricorn, your Capricorn mantra is like, worst case scenario is happening in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Are you prepared? And Capricorn is like, absolutely, go check my bag, right? Being able to be prepared and be resourceful. For Capricorn rising, moon, stellium, sun, whatever it may be, we're talking about the specifically roles and expectations in two places. We're talking about roles and expectations in romantic relationships. And we're talking about roles and expectations in your creative life, right? In terms of romantic relationships, Capricorn is resourceful. And so, it can be just a matter of being resourceful in order to just fit into established roles in your relationship. There's still this dynamic of, for Cancer and Capricorn, of confronting queerness in intimate, physically intimate, romantically intimate relationships. Same for Scorpio and Taurus. There's a theme of, who's the real alien here? Who is the normie here, and how easily those roles can reverse when folks are just emotionally authentic. And understanding the difference between appearing different and feeling different. That you can appear different, but have a subjective experience of yourself that does look or feel normal, or normal in quotations, or you can have a way that you look like you pass, or your partner might look like they pass. But there are consequences for the real differences that are inside. And so these romantic relationships become a place where you can play with queerness. You can play, right? Inside the safe space of a relationship, if you have that. Finally, the creative side, right? You might be doing some creative work that brings right into confrontation the current cultural and collective dynamics of race, of gender identity, of class, of sexual identity. That might be right in the center of your work. It might be right in the center of the collaborations and partnerships that you are given opportunity to participate in right now for Capricorn. Finally, we're almost there. Where are we at? Aries? Oh, I think we're at the last one, y'all. Did I skip somebody? No, I didn't. Okay, finally, we are at Aries. This is about your money, Aries. This is about how you nourish yourself with food. It's about your possessions and your assets. This is about, Aries, rising, moon, specifically those two. If you have Venus in Aries, if you have Venus in Scorpio, please get your thyroid checked, okay? Get it checked. And be mindful that any symptoms you might be experiencing might be related to food allergies or an intolerance to something for anybody who's Aries moon or rising, okay? Where are we? Yes. Oh, man. Financial entanglements for my Aries boos. Who do you owe money to and who owes money to you? What are you doing with your money and where are you spending it? What messages have you internalized about the kind of work you should be doing, the ways that you do or don't handle your money, based on some unspoken dynamics of shame and rejection in your upbringing? Right? What messages have you internalized about handling money based on the roles you saw your parents play in your life or not play? Have you made an identity out of that? Right? Let's pull these cards. We're trying to go to 1:15. Let's see if we can keep it at 75 minutes today. I really like these horoscopes a whole lot because I feel like people can really get something specific. So I'm going to try to keep it up. I'm once again using Afro Tarot by Jesse Jumanji. I'm kind of scared to read these cards today, y'all. I'm not going to lie. These eclipses have been real sneak, okay? Real sneak, okay? And just when you think, because that's the thing, like, people look at astrology and like different, retrograde or whatever it may be, and they're looking for some like big like thing, ignoring their current emotional crisis, right? Like not realizing that, that's the astrology. Okay. All right. The drama is the eclipses. Solar eclipses come and be like, this thing gotta go. Okay, it's time to go. I don't care if you liked it or you wanted it. It's time to go. These eclipses are like, hey, these norms, these roles and expectations that you've been kind of mindlessly filling in your life, time to go. You can create something for yourself, man. We got Jupiter in Aquarius holding us down, right? Aquarius planets are holding us down until like 2025, giving us the opportunity to actually imagine and create something new. So you got to take this opportunity right now. You know, Jupiter gonna leave Aquarius for about a month or two later this year, but then it'll be back, and then by the time we get to the spring, a year from now, May of 2022, Mars will be back in Aquarius, and before Mars leaves Aquarius, Saturn is coming. So Aquarius is really holding us down, and it's really what's giving us the emotional space to gain perspective, right? Let's see what we've got here. We've got the Queen of Pentacles. So we're talking about resourcefulness. We're talking about working with what we have. We're talking about making good use of what we have been given. I like to think of this maybe as reworking our existing materials and stretching it, repurposing our existing materials that we have. We've got the King of Cups. I'm trying to get that to focus. Don't know if it will. King of Cups. We've got the Hermit. And we have Two of Pentacles. So oftentimes when I see the Queen of Pentacles show up, it turns up in a situation where somebody wants to change, right? They want a new job, they want more money, you know, they want to shift directions and do something different in their life. But the Queen of Pentacles often comes up to say like, now is not really the time for change in as much as it's a time for you to take a good look at what you already have and figure out how to use it. Oftentimes we're so eager to change things without actually taking into consideration that we have something that is close enough that we can make it work, right? The Two of Pentacles in the end is kind of reiterating this message of resourcefulness and budgeting your time, budgeting your energy, budgeting emotionally, realizing that there are limits and that working within limitations is actually the definition of creativity, right? Creativity is not, oh, I'm just going to do whatever I want with whatever I want, whenever I want, right? There are some forms of art that can be free like that, but ultimately, in order to make art, to be an artist, to live an artistic life, you have to understand your medium. And so the Queen of Pentacles is talking about, do you understand the medium that you're working with? The medium that you're working with is you, okay? Do you understand the medium that you're working with? And do you understand how you have already been the person that you are seeking to become, and you just don't have the right vantage point? The King of Cups often comes up in times where somebody's got to be the adult. Somebody has got to make a big decision to be the grown-up in an emotional capacity. Oftentimes the King of Cups is like, hey, you cannot continue to indulge this person, place, or thing. And you've got to put up some boundaries, or you have to speak up, or you have to be the one to put an end to something that is not safe or emotionally healthy for the people involved. So just in terms of identity, a King of Cups moment might look like emotional authenticity in a space that you've been hiding your feelings for too long. The King of Cups moment might be setting a boundary in a place that you've never set a boundary before because you were afraid of the consequences. This Pentacles leads me to believe that whatever this King of Cups moment is for you may not actually be as radical as you think it is, right? When we're in this space of repurposing, and we're in this space of reusing, and we're in this space of figuring out what it is that we actually have, the King of Cups might be saying you haven't been taking the appropriate emotional vantage point to the situation that you're in. And when you grow up and put on your big person drawers, you might actually perceive differently what you've been working with all along inside yourself and your identity, or in a particular relationship. That middle card, the Hermit. The Hermit is seeking and searching. There's a guiding light that's driving the Hermit. And oftentimes the Hermit cannot explicitly tell you what it is that they are looking for. They just have the feeling that they haven't found it yet. But again, when we have this Two of Pentacles at the end, this leads me to believe that this is more about perception and vantage point than it is about seeking or finding something new, right? This is more about the fact that you haven't been a good steward of the resources, the relationships, the gifts, the talents, the aspects of yourself as you could have been. And if you were a good steward, and if you can make the emotional shift in this moment to be a good steward of what you've been given, you will find that you have a lot more to work with than you thought you did. Right? I think that's a great way to wrap up today's reading. Alienation, reimagining the status quo. This was great. If you enjoyed what you heard here, the first thing I suggest you do, is go to thepeoplesoracle.com and click shop. Get you this 2021 Sidereal Astrology Guide. This is going to walk you through a personal application of 1 year of astrology for the month of June. I'm having you tied back to 2020 and 2019 so you can bring together the stories of the past 2 years that are so relevant to this eclipse moment. All of the experiences that you've had since July and August of 2019 that have made this reimagining not only possible but absolutely necessary, right? I've got questions and all of the instructions that you need in this guide. There's no need for you to have any astrological knowledge before you use this. Every single thing you need is here. Finally, if this blessed you, the next time you see a mutual aid request for a person in need, I want you to set aside your judgment and drop whatever you can into that person's GoFundMe or their Cash App. If you want to directly contribute to what I'm doing here, you can always go to thepeoplesoracle.com, click shop, and purchase any of the items that I have there available. I strongly suggest this. Or you can leave me a tip that I have left my Cash App name here, and you can contribute that way. Take care of yourselves. The next few weeks are going to be real intense and rough, and I'm sure you felt it, but we're in this together. I got you. You got me. Y'all enjoy your week. Bye.